Hello, 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 Kelly. Welcome. We have a super snuggle bug today who is very happy that I'm sitting in a place where she can enjoy the good snuggles. I hope people are having a good last Thursday, I should say, of February. Not last day of February, but last Thursday with the live streaming. We have some rather enthusiastic young ones outside who are using some very heavy bass music intermittently, so I have my fingers crossed that you won't be too bothered by that the noise cancelling will cancel that out and it'll all be good. But, I mean, young ones gotta do what they gotta do. I talked about these the last two streams, that I didn't have a little safety pin for securing my crochet, but I went and got one after the last one, so now I have, this is just a little plastic safety pin that we have a couple of for stitch markers, and using one to hold your stitch in crochet is very, very useful. Do recommend, so long as you actually remember to do the thing. ads. YouTube, are you going to play ads already? No, I think not. We only just started. Kindly hold your horses a little bit. We are allowed to say hello and such sundry things first. But yeah, how are everyone doing? Are you working on anything exciting today? Any projects you are finishing up or just starting or planning? You know, excitement of new project energy. Is there any? Or are you, like me, incapacitated by snuggly little creatures who find you, who give you the honor of being a safe spot and could not possibly move anywhere because then you would disturb their precious snooze? Hello, Miss Megan Beckett. Good morning / afternoon indeed. Hello, Loxalaire as well. Much activity and many snoozings. Am I going to be talking too much for your preference, madam? You were ready for a nice quiet snooze and then I talk all over you. How rude. And hello, Etienne and Kay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I hope you are having a good time of day this 27th of February. Kelly is working on emotional support chicken number 3. This one is cool chicken. Ooh, makes me wonder if they have sunglasses or if they are in cool color palette shades. Either way, that is very exciting. I am still working on this here crochet lace edge for my little wool shawl, and we have enthusiastic people outside, so I apologize if there are some strange things that show up in the audio feed. It is outside of my control, but hopefully the noise cancelling will take most of it so that it is not too confusing and disruptive. Hold up. Etienne says, about to bring my dog outside and I'm working on finishing a hat for the farmers that gave me the Dorset fleece. Ooh, I love that. Some good gifting community vibes going on. It's so much more satisfying to give each other things than to just exchange things and services for money. At least I find it a lot of fun when you have people who are really skilled at doing stuff and you can exchange goods, which is just so satisfying in so many ways. Hello, Lynn, welcome. And Kelly is confirming that it is cool colors and not sunglasses that makes emotional chicken number 3 a cool chicken as opposed to the number 2 that was a hot chicken. I love that you're making a little collection of various emotional support chickens. That seems a very necessary and fun thing to do. I am still doing a lot of counting and trying to keep track of chat at the same time, which is always an interesting challenge. Shall see how many strange things we shall introduce into the crochet lacing and if it shall not be visible when we are done. Hello, Catherine. Hello, Max. Welcome. And Catherine just about to have tea and then some sewing. Barter is wonderful. Yes, it is very wonderful. I also like it between, friends and people who at least semi-know each other, where you're kind of trying to, because you know how much time and effort crafts take, so you're kind of trying to out-gift each other by making each other cool stuff, which is the best way of trying to outcraft each other, is, making each other cooler and cooler things. It's just... it's the best kind of magic. Loxalaire says, today's activity is attempting to stratify my native wildflower seeds. That is exciting. The only stratification that I'm aware of for Norwegian stuff is usually just 3, 4, 5, 6. Trying not to tickle these small toe beans. As Megan Beckett is still spinning the same white blue-faced luster on my tiny Turkish-style spindle, finally getting a good amount done. That is actually really encouraging. It makes me feel less bad about not having a new exciting project for you every week, because I am still working on this shawl that we have been working on together for almost a year at this point. And I mean, we are getting closer to done, but it's kind of nice to see that viewers are also, that you are also having similar projects that you have been working on already going on, so that, you know, there is nothing strange about working on the same thing for many an evening and many a time. Although I do feel like this is starting to get closer to done, and then it shall be spring and we shall not be able to wear it for a full half year because it'll be far too warm. Max is making a pair of knoll binding gloves using a finish stitch. That is very nice. Always good to have something to keep those digits warm. The old extremities, we don't want them getting cold. Hello Alex, welcome. Hope you are having a lovely evening. And Lynn said they just planted a bunch of seeds for a vegetable garden, radishes and turnips, but also flower mix to attract ladybirds. Ooh, it is getting towards gardening season, isn't it? We have wanted to buy some like planters, some raised planters, so that we can use on our porch that won't damage the wood, but we'll be able to plant. I'm hoping it's like some radishes, some carrots, maybe something else that we know we will be eating. And it is getting towards that time, isn't it? It's absolute getting time to get that garden started in the northern hemisphere, at least. I'm hoping for at least one planting container, you know, not overdoing anything. Three. Oh no, my internet is cutting in and out from Miss Megan Beckett. I hope. I'm sorry, like I'm hoping that it is just you and that it isn't me, but I'm not seeing any connectivity issues on my end. So hopefully for everyone else, but sadly for you, maybe it is indeed on your end. But that must be very frustrating. That is no fun to be hiccuping like that. It can be very, very frustrating when one is trying to enjoy anything. So I hope it resolves itself somehow. Lynn says, I also have seeds for carrots, but I'll plant them in a couple of weeks when the rest has sprouted. That is a good thing to do. Yeah, I'm trying to hold back and not overdo it, because that usually is a recipe for, you know, setting yourself up for failure, because then you get overwhelmed and it all just goes to chaos. So I'm just like, maybe one to start with, and then we'll take it from there, and you'll level up slowly is the intention, at least. We shall see if that also becomes the reality, or if we will not manage to hold ourselves back when we see all the cute seeds and all the fun things to do. And Alex too, I should start planning what I want to plant this year. Should ask the kids what they want to try this year. That is always a good way with getting kids involved in fun stuff, is letting them make choices themselves. Absolutely love that. I do love schools that have school gardens and stuff, because it's so fun to get involved, and then you get to see if that is something that you like doing. You know, actually having some experience with the thing. Tian said, it's still heavily snowing here, but my tomatoes and peppers sprouted in their greenhouse. How exciting. Yeah, it's still winter in Norway, but it's been a very mild time of year, so it's kind of, everyone is wondering, as they do every year, whether or not it is spring already, or if there will be more winter first. I'm used to winter, you know, giving you one last row before it gets proper spring though, so I'm not really getting my hopes up yet. It's usually one more to make sure that you remember what winter is like before spring is truly sprung, but as always we shall see. Nothing to be done about the weather. Okay, is warming up after colder than expected walkies before I can start knitting. Oh no. Had to stop and admire a little flock of rams moving an empty lot along our walkie route. Aww. Or mowing, not mowing, moving. Oh, that is so cute. They are so cute though. I can understand wanting to admire them. Hopefully next time you will bring something to keep your extremities a little bit more toasty, so you don't have to wait so long until you can keep knitting again. And Lynn says, this weekend I'll take care of peas and beans. I just haven't had the spoons because I need to move a big pot for them and make it trellis. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Make sure to budget out those spoons, because it can get a very overwhelming very fast. It's a good idea for taking the time to be careful. Madam, I'm trying not to. Can I put it over here maybe? So that it is not resting on precious Madam's toe beans. You ever try to do that, where you try to move things so they are not in the way of a pet that is snoozing, and then the pet just follows? I don't know if Suit's going to do that yet, but I feel like that is quite common. Like, you try to accommodate and then they just unaccommodate themselves. Again, can you actually hear the thumping bass music of enthusiastic young ones outside? They have a car with some large boom blasters, and I'm hoping that the noise cancelling is actually cancelling it out and that you don't have extra ambiance, such as it is. But not really much I can do about it, if so, other than solve a mystery if you have been hearing strange artifacts in the background and not really known what it is. But I can confirm that there are indeed some young adults in a car with some very big music stereos, so if that bleeds through into the video, that is what that is. Like, that is a solution to the mystery if you have been curious. A very little bit, but only when the thump is particularly enthusiastic. Well, that is something, I suppose, although we might have to, if they're getting too loud, maybe we'll have to cut it early. I have no idea what their plans are for the evening. But yeah, very, very enthusiastic, which I shan't be denying them that. They have every right to be there, same as everyone else, so I'm glad I have earplugs. Alex says, I thought I was hearing a weird heartbeat or something. Ooh, that's rife for a horror story, that is. That sounds like it could be the grounds of something very interesting. But no, I'm just trying to let people know that there is indeed something in the background. And it is indeed there, and you are not going crazy. Such is life when you live a little bit close together, isn't it? Like, things are always going to be like that. Kelly says I can't hear them over here in California. Well, that is good. It didn't reach quite that far. Lynn says I never understand how people in those cars even survive. It sometimes hurt my ears even through our own car windows. I know, right? Like when you can feel the thump of their bass from a house and a parking lot away, that seems like it would be very intense on both body and eardrums when you are actually within the car. But I suppose it is bringing them joy. New creepypasta just dropped. I am not writing that one. Someone else can do that. You know, we have some talented writers among us. I am not fit for writing horror in any way, shape, or form. I am far too easily getting nightmares, so no. But yeah, decidedly breeding grounds for someone else. You ever do that thing where your pet is just lying so quietly that you just have to make double sure that they are actually breathing? I do that a lot. I know, probably a little bit over anxious, but you know, sometimes you just gotta check, make sure nothing happened and you didn't realize. Speaking of creepypasta, but yeah. These seeds are so small. Oh, there are so many seeds that are so cute. I think it is carrot seeds because they look like tiny curled up little worms. They're so cute and they're so tiny. But yeah, maybe not super tiny, but there are so many seeds that are really, really small, and it's amazing how they grow so big. And then you have some really big seeds, like if you're planting like peas for sugar snap peas or something like that. And they are just really big. And anything and everything in between. Nope. In between, madam, please. Hello, Blue Iris. Welcome. Let's see. A few days of thawing and the snowbanks have shrunk a lot. Fall Spring Part 1. Ah, you get those in Canada too. Yeah, we're having one of those in Norway too at the moment, or at least in Trondheim where I am. And if I was further north, I would call this we call it reinkalvria, which is, you know, you get a fake spring, part 1, and then you have a proper second bout of winter, you know, snow. And the legend goes that they would tell me was that reindeer need to calve on snow, and that is kind of what that means. So reinkalvria means, you know, reindeer calf. I don't know how to translate ria, but kind of like the bout of weather for the reindeer calves, so that the reindeer calves are safely born on snow. Which it's so fascinating to me. Again, this is a very dialect word. Like, this word exists in northern Norway, but not in southern Norway, at least not where I grew up, because we don't have a need for it south. There aren't that, you know, reindeer hanging out, at least in the southeast where I grew up. But in the north, they have this word for that second winter after like a fake spring before proper spring rolls around. And it never ceases to amaze me how languages will have some very specific words for certain things that reflects, you know, different values and different priorities of the language in such a cool way. Max says, I think I hear your audio getting distorted. I am not surprised. Many people confirming that they can indeed hear a little bit of the background ambience, such as it is, but hopefully it is not too distracting. Hello, did you wake up on me? Wait, did I twist? We did, didn't we? There we go. And 6. Beetroot seeds are also pretty big. Ooh, yeah. It's kind of fun when you're handling, like, when you feel like you're handling a proper big seed, like, you really, you really have a good seed. I like when I'm planting peas because you can just shove them in one at a time and get them where you want them. Whereas with carrot seeds and the tiny ones, I always feel like I'm just kind of losing them and then they fall wherever they will, and it's a little bit more chaotic, but they're still very nice. Orchids have the smallest seeds, so small they can't germinate without parasiting energy from fungi, as compared to coconuts, which can float in the ocean for decades and still germinate. Ugh, nature is so cool. So amazing how these, like, same function but very different execution. It's just really, really cool. And for different needs and different climates. Seeds are little brown and or black unlikely packets of possibilities. That's a good way of looking at it. It's a lot of fun. I've wanted to try to grow some pumpkins. There are only very few that can grow in the Norwegian summer because it is so short compared to elsewhere, but there is one that I think it's called red curry. At least that's what I've seen Charles Dowding, I think, refer to it as. In Norway, we called it a Hokkaido squash or Hokkaido pumpkin because I think that is where they were developed and grown. They're these tiny little deeply orange things, and I sometimes have them in my Halloween videos because they are so perfectly orange, and they make delicious roast pumpkin soup that is absolutely top notch, and it's supposed to be able to handle Norwegian summers, so it is exciting. I kind of want to grow one because that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. We shall see if I actually get there one day and manage to protect it from whatever wants to eat it first. And they get so big, don't they, the plants? It's super amazing. Lynn commenting about the orchids that fungi being the ones being parasited for once. They are impressive specimens, aren't they, fungi? They just are their own type of being entirely. Ah, Miss Megan Beckett fixed the poor internet by unplugging and plugging it back in again. That is good to hear. So now you have a little bit better connection with which to hear the thumping background enthusiasm going on, but that is a good thing to hear. So now we can all chill out together. Max says, oh, it's okay, it's just spouse losing something. You should be used to us always being a bit clumsy by now. Don't know if it's my Wi-Fi connection caused by the weather or not. I couldn't tell you, Max, but I'm seeing no. Usually if I'm having connectivity issues, YouTube will pop up with a little struggling to connect thing, and I haven't seen any of that in stream yet, so fingers crossed when when there are connectivity issues, it is not on my end for once, which is kind of a relief. We did have some struggles when we moved here because there are more people around and they're sharing similar internet, and it's kind of disrupting to each other. So hopefully that is not a thing today. Knock on wood. Not saying it couldn't become, but not at the moment. Lynn says, I wish I could grow pumpkins and courgettes, but unfortunately not doable on a balcony, and hoping to get one plant of Brussels sprouts. Ooh, Brussels sprouts are delicious, like roasted with quite high temperatures. And walnuts are really nice. But yeah, we have some space. We don't have any soil, but we have this outdoor porch thing. That is where we hope to put the planters, and hopefully we can get a couple of decently big-ish planters on legs. Maybe enough for a pumpkin plant. I'm not sure, because again, they do get so large. So I guess we shall see, but maybe not this year. This year I'm like trying with like easy things like pumpkins and no, not pumpkins, or radishes and carrots. Although now that I'm saying it, I kind of want to do the pumpkin because it is so cute. Plant your pumpkin on a south-facing wall and trellis it from Cecilia. Ooh. I don't really have a south-facing wall since we live in a what are they called? Attached housing. Like ours is in the middle, and then you have like buildings directly south and north of us, like in a long row. We have these. I think you call them townhouses in the U.S., but I'm used to like thinking of them as like attached, detached housing. So I have a east-facing. No, wait. They have an east-facing small area that can house a little bit, and then there's a west-facing porch, which is, I mean, it gets quite a bit of sun, so I wouldn't be surprised if it could grow a couple of things. But if we ever manage to get a place with a garden and a south-facing wall, I shall remember that, because that sounds cool. That sounds very interesting, and most of the planters will be on the west-facing porch because there is the most space there. So that is exciting room for adventure. Hello from the States. You also adore the French language. Hello Janine, welcome. I hope you are having a good time. So glad to finally have made a crafting and chill. I am glad. They're a lot of fun to do because I get to interact with people very differently from when you do videos. It's very nice to get to chill out with a lot of the people who like to join these kind of things. Hello from Lore. Just popped in for a bit. Sure, I missed a few things. Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of these live streams, isn't it? But it's kind of like, I imagine it's a bit like, at least this is how I use live streams. If I'm listening to one, I imagine it is how my grandma would use the radio. Like, it's kind of background company when you're just doing other things and not really needing to focus. It's, especially if you're puttering about in your house alone, it's nice to have a voice, you know, a different person that it feels like you're hanging out with, that can keep you company while you're crafting or doing chores or anything like that. At least that is how I like to use live streams, but I don't know how other people are associating the medium with. Maybe they are called brown houses, a row of houses with attached wall. I have not heard that term before, Catherine. You would know better than I, since it is... we just call them, if I directly translate the Norwegian word, it would be row houses. Like houses on a row, where you share walls on multiple sides. And we built quite a lot of them after the Second World War, so that people would have some place to live, which is always a good thing to do. Affordable housing and all that jazz. I trellised, let's see, Luxler says, I trellised my pumpkins one year, but they were the big jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. It was a lot of work to prevent the pumpkin from breaking my trellis. Oh no! That sounds like quite the adventure. Yeah, at least the Hokkaido or the red curry squashes are quite like small sized. Goodness, they are really having fun, aren't they? Quite small things, so quite manageable. Etienne says, I haven't had a lot of luck with pumpkins, but this year I want to try the Three Sisters method. Corn, beans, and pumpkins all planted together. It looks like so much fun to do them all together, and makes so much sense too to have the ground cover plant and a tall, stout grass and a climbing plant. I just love that kind of. Oh, how fun would that be if you did like a Stardew Valley type game, but you do it for permaculture and companion planting so that it's all growing together, and instead of creating a traditional farm, you are creating like diversity. You start with a monoculture place and you add diversity and companion planting and cool things. Ads, by the way, we're about to have ads, so hydration break. And Blue Iris chimes in that in New York, northeastern US, I believe, it's called brownstones. Here they are known as townhouses. Yeah. So many variations of the word. It's very. But it makes sense because there are so many different ways of executing it. Catherine says, it's the term I've seen in fiction, so I'm not sure of the validity of the term. Brown houses may have been specifically brick construction. It's a good observation. I don't know any more than you do, but it's interesting how they have all these different kind of styles for calling housing. I have been abandoned, but I guess then we shall turn the cat cam into a crochet cam of sorts. Although my near side itself always wants to pull the crochet closer to mine and eyes. And Jen says, from what I gathered, you need to make a small round pile of dirt, so compost, and then plant about 3 of everything. Not entirely sure. I wouldn't know either, but I am excited to hear about any experiments you are performing about it and how successful they are, because it is such an exciting and sensible way of growing food. Like, cover the ground and climb things and just, it's so cool, so ingenious. Such a good way of growing food. And Kelly chiming in that, Catherine, in American Eastern cities they are called brownstones, and yes, they refer to the material used to make them. Row houses would be an acceptable term. Yeah, I find that really interesting when you haven't seen or experienced the thing firsthand and you read about it in fiction. You're never quite sure what is actually accurate to the area that is being described and what might be a fantasy element. For the longest time, I thought that doorknobs being in the middle of the door was purely a Hobbit thing. That I have seen the round knockers or the round doorknobs being a thing. Yeah, they're not really a thing in Norway that much. Some houses have them, but not a lot. But they're always like on the side where you're opening the door, never in the middle of the door. So I thought the placement of the doorknob was purely a fantasy thing, purely a thing that existed in The Hobbit. And then we lived in London for 2 years, and indeed, there are people with the doorknob smack dab in the middle of the door, which I imagine might challenge if you need to put leverage on the door to open it, because you get less leverage when you are closer to the hinges. But that was an experience, like Catherine not knowing whether something is a fantasy fiction or a real thing because you haven't seen it. And I thought the doorknobs in the middle was just a Hobbit thing, but no, it turns out that is just an English thing. It's always fun to learn those little details. Okay, it says, fingers are all warm again now. I get to continue knitting my field sweater. Ooh. Just a few more rows until I'm done with the yoke pattern that looks like grains. Oh, that sounds so cute. Grains are such a patternable, like happy subject to be depicting. That sounds like a very happy sweater indeed. Catherine says, I always misunderstood townhouse as a 2-story apartment, but in a row of them. But in a row of them makes sense. Houses in town. Townhouses. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always thought about townhouses as like more fancy, like row housing in Norway is not very fancy. Like I think of them as like a city central type thing, but that is probably not actually true. Or like multi-living unit type spaces. Row houses is what they are called in German too. Ah, so more places with similar logic, although that makes sense because we share a lot of language logic with the German language since we are both Germanic languages. And yeah, a lot of, pulling words together into really long words, because if they mean something else when they are separated, they must be pulled together. So you end up with these really long strings of words, and poor people trying to learn the language are like, where are the pieces? How fit together? Why? Why would you do this? Poor things, it can be quite a challenge to figure out where to pull them together and where to pull them apart when you're trying to translate the pieces. Some front doors here in France have the doorknobs in the middle too, although I don't think I've seen them on recent buildings. Oh, that is so fascinating. It's such a small thing, just such a small example of something that as a child I thought was entirely just a fantasy element to make the hobbits even more cozy. And then it turns out, nope, this is completely a real thing. A very cute real thing, but absolutely. And yeah, it's because when you haven't experienced the culture, it can be hard to tell, like which parts are the fiction and which parts are the real parts. Hello, Doro. Welcome. I hope you're having a good Thursday. The sun has well and truly set, but I got to set up everything while there was still light, which was delightful. The days are getting longer so fast. It is. We joke about this. Everyone I talk to about it, like, this happens every year, and yet we always talk about it and have to express how nice it is that the days are getting longer again and how much it feels like you are getting large parts of your day back, because you don't just feel sleepy at 3 p.m. because there is no more sunlight. It's really interesting just how much it makes a difference. Yay, made it to a live stream. Welcome, Winry. I hope you're having a good time. Hello, sweetie. Are you coming back to us? Alex says, I took the day off for my mental health, did a lot of spinning, and that helps. That is very good. Got the news that my dad has prostate cancer, and I've been trying to give that a place today. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That is difficult to deal with. I hope you are having the opportunity to spend time with him and take care of yourself as well, as you say, making space for processing the news. That is no fun at all. I mean, it is all part of life, but it's very much not fun when you're going through it. It can be very difficult indeed. So I'm very glad that you are taking some time for yourself to allow yourself to process it. That is very good too. Like in the midst of the grief, that is kind of good to hear that you're giving yourself some space and some time to deal with the emotions around that, because they can be difficult. And you don't want to put it all on the person who is sick, which can be hard. I know some people who have some very difficult diseases, and a lot of the times one of the griefs they talk about is that they don't feel like they're able to talk about the disease and the pain and the things that are going on, because people just get so uncomfortable when people are talking about difficult topics, and then the sick person feels like they can't talk about it and they have to take care of the emotions of the other person, and that can be a hard thing. It can be a very hard thing. So I'm glad you had the opportunity to take some time to yourself. Janine says, also on a break from work for mental health. Go team. Very well. I'm glad that this is becoming more of a thing. It is in everyone's interest that people take time to themselves to get better. It's something I'm trying to do myself as well, not trying to push too hard, although it is tempting. Sometimes it just takes longer than you want it to, and I tell myself that there's nothing wrong with that, but the good old thing where you're kind of putting yourself to higher standards than everyone else, than you extend to everyone else, and that is difficult to try to extend the same compassion to yourself as you do to those around you. But we can sort of try to encourage each other to do that, like in the chat with you, encouraging each other to take the breaks that you need, which is very good. Max also currently taking a break from work due to migraines. Yeah, it can be hard trying to work with chronic illnesses. So it's good that you are taking a bit of a break too. It seems to be a theme of the day that we are giving ourselves a little bit of space to rest and breathe, and taking things a little bit slower is very, very good. I feel like a lot of people don't get it because we idolize productivity so much. I read the book Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, and I cannot recommend it enough if anyone is struggling. Ooh, that is good. I might take a note of that. I also really liked, it was a very light-hearted book written by, I think, a British, I want to say a British couple of friends, and it was called, what was it called? Work Style, which sort of deals into the same vein, but in a different manner. That whole, instead of lifestyle, it's a play on the word lifestyle, but work style as a balancing the life that you want to have with your work, so that work doesn't take up all space available, because you need to have room for other things too, and trying to design a life where you both do the work that you are hired to do or that you develop to doing, but you're also giving space to the other important life things, which is also really important. And I found it a very light-hearted, a nice little read. And yeah, it's important to remind ourselves of these things, to both take breaks and that our life is not all work. We are doing other things too, although I find it very difficult. I don't know, I feel like I've gotten out of the practice of resting. I don't know how to rest effectively. I'll sit there and I'll wonder, what am I supposed to do if I'm not working? I need something specific. I'm bad at, I feel like those muscles have atrophied. I've gotten bad at resting, and that is something that I need to work on again, just sitting down with a book or crafting without it needing to become a video or something like that. It's a skill like everything else, and when I'm trying to get better at, intentional rest, not just sitting there like a potato in the couch and being too exhausted to do anything. Janine says, I still really struggle with not feeling guilty when I'm resting, recovering too. And how do you guys deal with that? Oof, that is a difficult. It depends on the person, doesn't it? Like why we feel guilty and why we feel the guilt and why we feel the pressure. So many of us have been raised to sort of having to do this stuff all the time. But sometimes I think about, what's that? I think that was a Hidden Brain episode where they talked about the 7 different types of rest. I think it was 7. I should probably pull up the link, but they were talking about, and this helped me because I mean, if you're being very not if you're being very cynical about it, you could always be like, well, but if I rest effectively, I can also work more effectively. So it's kind of everyone benefits instead of us just zoning through things. But Lynn as well coming in with, you can see rest as an investment for the future. That is a good one. Like trying to see it in a way that your brain can understand, that your brain can sort of agree with. But what I liked about it when they talked about I think it was 7 different types of rest, was that it points out why sometimes we try to rest and it isn't working, because it kind of, you had to identify what kind of rest you were short on. So for instance, creative rest, if you're doing creative work, which most work is in some ways creative, you need to refill that jar specifically, such as going to museums and experiencing new things. I find it really nice to go for a walk in the forest without my earplugs in. That really fills that creative cup, and also many other many other cups. Like if I have been out socialized and I'm just needing to be by myself, walking in the forest also helps. But of course, a walk in the forest will deplete my physical energy, so then I will need to take time later to do some physical rest, because a walk will not do that, but it will give me other forms of rest, if that makes sense. And I thought that was a really insightful and like intentional rest. And it was also talking about that we need like spiritual rest, which for some people can be prayer, for some people can be meditation, for some people can be things like walking in the forest and just admiring and being in awe of nature. That is my preferred for that kind of genre, is just like admiring nature and all that she is capable of doing and how amazing she is, gives you that kind of sense of awe. And I can't remember the whole list of different types of rest, but I thought that that was kind of illustrative as to why, when you're exhausted because you did too much and you're just kind of vegging out in front of the television or something and watching something mindlessly, unable to do anything else. I mean, you are getting physical rest, but you aren't getting recharged in many of the other aspects that you might really need by doing other forms of rest. And I find that hard. I need to like revisit the idea repeatedly, because I still don't have the habit of it. I'm not very good at doing the things of, like sitting down with a book and letting myself just enjoy the book, or going for that walk in the forest when I feel like I should be working on a thing for a deadline. Like it's hard work to be intentional about rest. And yeah, it is difficult. And Lynn also says, ideally rest for its own sake is better, but anything that gets you to do the thing is still better than nothing. Yeah, I like to, like, sometimes you just have to learn to negotiate with the brain that you have, which looks different for everyone. So that is kind of why I find it a little bit difficult to know how to talk to someone about what might work for them, because I only work things that might work for my brain and maybe a few of the people that I know well. Like I can negotiate with my brain to be like, yeah, but we don't get to sort of give up on this before we have actually exhausted all the different possibilities. Like if you can still pay rent, then you are still allowed to try to do the thing, which is scary, but at the same time it's kind of like my brain goes, oh yeah, you're right, like until we are, hopefully not, but like homeless and really have depleted all the savings and all the funds and everything, then we get to keep trying to do the thing. Which is not something that's going to work for everyone, but yeah, you kind of need to know a little bit of where your buttons are, where you're struggling, where you have triggers or trauma or whatever, like history, anxiety, to know how to sort of, is wrong to say manipulate yourself, but in a way, like a lot of psychology is just like you can influence other people, and if you have positive intention, it is seen as a good thing, but if you have negative intention, it is manipulation. But it's the same techniques a lot of the time. You know, you are saying that someone looks good in a thing, or you are ruining their day by saying that they don't look good in that thing. And you can do a lot of the things with yourself as well, which is really interesting. And I love the Hidden Brain episodes where you have some kind of expert in some kind of manipulation technique, and they talk about how even though they know exactly what the door-to-door salesman is doing, because they study that kind of persuasion technique, they still are reacting to it when it happens, when they have a salesman at their door, because they are not immune to the psychology of it, even if they understand what is going on, they are still susceptible to the techniques. And I really appreciate when the experts of that psychology admits to that, because it makes it easier for all of us to be human, doesn't it? That like, yeah, these psychology things work because our brains are susceptible to them, and that's okay. And then we can try to use them for good things, for helping ourselves get the rest that we need, or giving ourselves grace, which can be hard compared to giving other people grace, which is a lot easier than being nice to ourselves, sadly. The other day I lied out on our lounger in the backyard. The sky was a perfect blue and the temperature was good and the sun was warm. The birds were chirping and the wind chimes were tinkling. It had been a long time since I just intentionally sat outside. That sounds like a perfect example of intentional rest, Kelly. That is amazing. Well done. Love to see it. I hope that I can get better at things like that too, like reading a book and just actually resting and not feeling like I have to do anything. But I think the biggest thing I can say is that give yourself the grace of failing. Like, try to not set yourself up to fail, but also know that it's hard to establish these habits, so you probably will struggle. And that is okay. Like, you take 2 steps forward and then there's a step back, and you take 2 more steps forward and you get a little backtracked, and all of those things are completely okay. Like, give yourself grace so you don't just give up because you fail once, because we will fail. Luxler says, I also like that because it makes it easier to forgive ourselves for being fooled. Like, no matter, it wasn't our fault for falling for this, it was the fault for manipulating us. Yeah, exactly. It's very good to try to forgive ourselves for having brains that react as expected to things. It's okay. Sarah says, I have described my field as the science of benevolent manipulation. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, like positive psychology and things like that. Like, you're using the same techniques as you would when you are negatively manipulating someone, but you're just trying to get a positive outcome, but the techniques are the same. Max says, sometimes it feels like when I get a really intense migraine, it kind of feels like I'm about to severely punish other people for worsening my symptoms and start blaming them for it. I honestly don't know if it's a manipulative tactic that I did, like blaming others for worsening my migraine attacks. I would say that is definitely, if not all the way into manipulation, it is at least borderline, because at the end of the day, we can only control ourselves and our own actions. So if staying in an environment is harming you and making your migraines worse, then you also have a responsibility, if you can, to remove yourself from that environment. Sometimes that is difficult if we live in, houses with a lot of other people and it's a lot of noise, and it can be very difficult to like get to a quiet place and be by yourself. But I try as much as possible to be like, yeah, but I also have a responsibility to set boundaries and to remove myself if people aren't respecting my boundaries, more than blaming other people, because that, like, people will do what they're gonna do, and we can only control ourselves at the end of the day and our own response, and not other people's, which can be frustrating, but it gets also really freeing when you start to really understand that you have like power to influence other people positively or negatively, but also at the end of the day, the only person you have control over truly is yourself. Like, that is what is within your locus of control. And focusing on the things we can change rather than people who don't want to change is also going to be a lot more fruitful in the long run, because we actually can make a difference, versus trying to change someone who's refusing to change is just going to be a drain on our energy reserves. Let's see. There's so much going on. Miss Megan Beckett said, my mom recently had her cataract surgery, so she had a week or so off of work on light activity. So we've been doing a lot of quiet activities and walking slowly in the park, and I think it's been very good for her being on enforced rest. That is true. Ordered by the doctor, because otherwise she always finds reason to keep busy every minute of the day, even if she's meaning to rest and knows she needs to rest. Yeah, it's a hard thing, but sometimes when the doctor orders it, it's hard to resist. But will she be able to manage to stay taking rests occasionally, and when she's back, getting more healed? That's the challenging thing. Like, it's easy to do it once the doctor has ordered it straight away, but then can you actually maintain the habit over time? That's the big challenge, isn't it? And Etienne off to work, and I already missed it, but I hope you have a good date at work, Etienne. Like, it's very good. Lynn says, I love giving people compliments, especially when it's short interactions. Not only does it hopefully brighten people's day, but the habit also gives them a reason to look for nice details. Ooh, yeah, that is a good one. Yeah, I had a habit of, when I was working at university, of I would always, because there is this saying, it's not such a big thing in Norway, but I noticed when I was working with colleagues from the UK that they really underestimate their engineers, which in the UK are, I think, called technicians more than anything else, like the people who run instruments, the people who can do sometimes lab work and things like that. And at least in Norway, they often do maintenance of the instruments, so they are really essential to you being able to do your analysis and your work, because they are the ones taking courses and maintaining things and unscrewing things and putting them back together and ordering parts. And a lot of the time, for the really complex, expensive instruments, they will have a dedicated engineer, and they're really essential. But in a lot of times, like, there was a culture of, and this is one thing that I really admire about my supervisor, there was this thing where engineers don't get put on scientific papers because they're not they're not the research team, they are a support team. And there was this culture that, you don't put engineers on the research papers. And my supervisor went to town, because that was not something they were used to from their other universities, and they would just go to bat for our fantastic engineer who did a lot of work with us and taught me everything I knew about running the instrument that I was working on. And I would just, have her on speed dial whenever there was a red light and something went beep in the wrong way. I would call her and she would come and help. And he really went to bat for her and made it so that at the Department of Chemistry now, they do list, like, people can list their engineers. You don't get discouraged from doing that anymore, which is fantastic. But I would always make it a habit of talking positively about her, not just, when she was in the room, but also when she wasn't, because the engineers are often so underestimated. So similarly to compliments, it can make such a difference to people's life to focus on the positive and help them with things. And hello, Kathy and accidentally Steve from Ottawa. We are about to have some ads, so we will have a little bit of an ad break, which I've been rambling on a topic I'm passionate about, so I need a bit of a refresher and, hydration break for everyone. Three, four. Let's see, Max says, if they don't understand what I'm suffering from, I realize that I can't fully understand what they're experiencing. Yeah, that's a good point. That's always a good way of trying to be compassionate about things that we don't know what other people are going through. Like, we're not mind readers, but also we can't feel their feelings for them. So we just don't know. And assuming that we do can be a very treacherous path indeed, and not something that I'm trying to actively stop doing, like assuming that you know people's intentions or assuming that you know how people feel, because we don't know unless they actually tell us. It's a very good habit to try to develop. Lynn says, honestly, technicians have more real reasons to be on the papers than a lot of supervisors, lab chiefs. I know, yeah. Sometimes, because they do a lot of the work, don't they? They keep the lab running. They are so essential, and they get often so underestimated, which is just really strange to me. Like in research groups, a lot of them wouldn't function without the technicians helping out and running stuff. And sometimes they even do like a sample prep, which our technician didn't do, but sometimes they do, and it's just they do so much important stuff. Winry says, well, writing out pattern notes, I just put down cat 6 instead of cut 6 because I was thinking about my cat while writing. I mean, relatable. Oh, and we have... I missed it twice, Megan, but sorry about that. But don't forget to vote in the Ontario elections today. And Steve commenting that they literally just voted, so that is good. Vote for things is important, but all over the world in different ways. So I was always taught that, if you don't vote, you also don't get to complain when the politicians do stuff you don't like, because you didn't use your citizen power to make your opinion known. So yes, make sure you vote. Janine asks, have you ever done a live stream or a video about your studies? I am a lost soul with a biochemistry undergrad, focus in analytical chemistry, hello, and would love to hear you ramble more. Oh no, you are encouraging. 7 years after leaving uni, I am finding love of chemistry as it relates to fiber and sustainable, healthful clothing. Yeah, I actually have, mainly because people are enabling me. You guys are enabling me in chat. Talking about how it is, the Kristine channel, not the purely textile channel. I have actually thought about doing more scientific-faced videos, and not just because I used to have a restriction on myself, because you hear all about, niching down and trying to keep things within a packageable box. So I tried to restrict myself to, I wanted to keep my research videos in some way, shape, or form within a focus of textiles, textile history, textile science, textile industry, that kind of topic, which is why we have chemistry of plant dyes, we have textile recycling science videos, we have PFAS in clothing specifically, although that is not what I worked on. I worked on PFAS, but not in clothing. We worked on it in blood samples and feather samples and soil and water samples and that kind of thing. So I didn't specifically extract samples from clothing. We extracted it from, but I mean, we find it in all the blood samples everywhere. We found it in blubber, which is very common because it's a fatty tissue. So I have actually, because, yeah, Luxolaire, you're filthy enablers. You are. I have been thinking about doing some science rants where I just get to go ham on topics that I know about. I have one that I have started drafting, so you might be careful what you wish for sometime soon. I'm hoping that they will be easier, faster videos to produce because I know the subject matter, I can talk about it without having to do too much research. Ideally, I have a couple of topics in mind, but at least one that I'm really passionate about, and I want people to understand this concept. It's called the cocktail effect, and it comes from pharmacology, but we can also apply it to toxicology and environmental contaminants because the same principles apply. And I'm not going to spoil the whole thing here. If you know, you know, but it is a very important concept, and it ties into a different video that does actually tie back to textiles because we're, full circle like that. But I'd kind of hoped that if I do a separate rant on that, I don't have to do as in deep depth of a rant on the other video. I don't know. But I mean, I have my old PowerPoints of the various presentations I did for my things. I'm thinking about it. I'm actually I feel like I'm doing less and less crafts and more talking rants, but we shall see. We shall see. I'm always having the hope that I'll try to find some kind of light-hearted thing that will make it easier for me to produce more videos. So A, I can give you guys more videos, but also B, maybe then I have more time to work on larger projects, which I have enough of. So So we shall see. There might be some stuff coming for our fantastic combination of science and crafts because we are enablers of the rants and all the rants. But that is good to hear. Well, I try to make them productive rants at least, but I do have some topics in mind. I would love to hear more science rants. There are so many of you. So many of you chiming in, my good. You all made me miscount. I did 2 chains of 6 when I'm supposed to do 6 and 4 and 6 and 4. That's how distracting this topic is. Wait. 4, 6, 4, 6. And then 4 again. But yes, maybe I shall have to lean into that some more. It also makes it easier to... Yes, please do more science rants. Child of chemistry professor. Oh, wow. Oh, that is always so amazing to me when people are... I want Kristine rants. Oof. You mean unleash a monster. Maybe I have to do something like that. We shall see. But yeah, it's always so amazing to me when people are like children of higher education in various ways, because I was not. I am very much a first generation university attendee, and the culture shock is real because there are so many things that people take for granted. Like my best example is my dissertation. The actual dissertation where you actually have to defend, or like you have to defend your thesis with, in Norway, you have an administrator, which is usually a professor at the institute that, your supervisor asks a professor to be administrator for their PhD student, and then they return the favor and they, book the session room, they do all the admin stuff around it, they make sure everything flows nicely. And then there are 2 opponents which have to be external, not related to your research, and are experts in their field, so they can judge you and give you questions. And then there's you, and you got to defend yourself. And at the end, if you're unaware of this, at the end of your defense, after they give you their assessment in the evening, you are supposed to take the opponents out to dinner, along with the administrator, along with your supervisor, and anyone important to the thesis. You take them out to dinner, or as I did, as you sometimes do, had them at the institute, and you got catering. But I kept asking everyone, how is this usually done? And everyone kept telling me, you get to decide. It is your defense. This is supremely unhelpful when you are a first-generation university student and you're neurodivergent at the same time, because you can't do whatever you want. Absolutely not. But that's what they tell you, it's your defense, you get to do whatever you want. But what they mean is that you get to do whatever you want within the expectations and the parameters. Such as you are expected to give the opponents and your supervisor, and in my case also the engineer, who was very important to me, a short speech and a gift. And no one told me that, because it's your defense, you get to decide. And so many of these small cultural things that I could have offended some people really badly if I didn't have someone who was willing to tell me, but what did you do for your defense? How is this normally done? And I was so frustrated, because you're already stressed trying to prepare for your defense, and no one would tell me what the standard setup for this is, so that I didn't have to, be a bull in the china shop, so to speak, too badly. I probably still did, because, things are hard, but I was so frustrated at that. So many tiny cultural things that if you grow up with it, but if you don't, you have no idea. They expect the students to take the profs out to dinner? Should be the other way around? Yeah, I was lucky. I was in an institute where they actually had a small sum of money set aside for the dinner, and then you would pay whatever was extra. So they had, and I grew up poor, so I didn't want to spend my own money on that. So I spent within that budget, and that budget alone. So I ordered from the cafeteria downstairs and had catering brought up to the institute. And I ordered up to the limit and no further. But in many universities, the student has to pay for this dinner themselves. And it is quite common that it's expected that it is a little bit fancy because, you just defended your thesis. But yeah, that is part of the unhingedness of academia that I did not know about as a first-gen university student. But yeah, you are expected to take out not just your professor, but the opponents who have just, torn you to pieces academically in front of an audience. And then you shake hands on your friends after. It's wild, truly. Sarah says, I like science, but whenever I think of chemistry, I think of how much my mom hated doing organic chemistry in uni. She's a developmental pediatrician, so she had to take the course, but she was not happy. Yeah, so many people who do any kind of science-related field, like biology or geology, or doctors' studies, do have to take organic chemistry as well. And yeah, they absolutely detest it. They are struggling so hard because it's a fairly complex field. And when you get them in lab work, they are so lost. They are so frustrated. They do not want to be there. At least the chemistry students want to be there. So it can be a hard time to get them through those courses. But usually the lab work is practical enough that you can give them a few hooks to hang the knowledge on, which is what I always tried to do, which, remember when we talked about subtractions and additions and that kind of thing, and look at what we're doing here. Here we're doing this kind of addition, and here we're doing something. Here the electrons are substituting and trying to hook, which the lab course is, part of what it's supposed to do is show things in practice. Janine says also neurodivergent here with that think where you take everything, well, not everything, but literally the struggle is real. Like, please, I need you to spell it out. I learn only by pattern recognition. I know. And no one would tell me anything. Lynn says, I'm sure people do it innocently, but that's one of the sneaky ways that you enforce who is really part of that class or not. Yes, I made so many mistakes. So clumsy. Yeah. So I had so many things that I look back on and I'm like, yep, that was very much the wrong call. Because they say one thing and they mean another. You know, ask culture to a big time. And yeah, I was so confused. So it took the better half of, I would say that it took the better half of 2 years before my supervisor and I kind of learned how to work together and learned to communicate, learned how the other person communicated and figured out, aha, so this is where we are talking past one another and this is how we can actually communicate with one another. By the end of my 4 years, we communicated really well, but in the beginning it was hard because he was the child of, I think, a diplomat, so they had access to academically, you know, educated people their whole life. So they were steeped in this culture and knew how to navigate it. And I was very much not. And in the beginning, that was a challenge. But we figured it out. We learned to collaborate and work together, which was quite frustrating because, you know, when we finally figured it out, I was done, which is always frustrating. Like when I finally felt like I had a grasp of the job, there was no more contract. Nothing more to be done. Hello, Stripy Crayons, welcome. We are ranting about science and academia and chemistry things, so I hope you have a craft ready, because we are also about to, you know, go off on all of the things. Lynn says, I loved organic chemistry and molecular biology in med school. Oh, oof. Molecular biology is something else. The Krebs cycle and the citric acid cycle and all of the things just, it really reinforces this thing that I have that I can't remember who talked about it first, but you know, some people think that if you learn too much about a thing, it loses its magic. But I'm very much on the other side, where the more you learn about a thing, the more magical it becomes, because the human body, my goodness, is it a complex thing of moving parts, and how does it all mostly work out? It's just, the more you learn about it, the more amazing it is. And it does all these things just by itself. It's really cool. So I really like molecular biology as well. And we had a really good professor who was like, you will get the citric acid cycle as a question on the exam, so you all better study. And one other cycle, but you're going to at least get this one, so make sure you study all the enzyme names and all the everything, because you will get it. No dice. Stripy Crayon says, I love a good rant, especially about academic hierarchy nonsense. Very true. Sarah says, there have been multiple times when teachers have given instructions for project and only realized that I didn't understand the assignment after when getting marks. Yeah. Oof. Do you want to hear about the one time I cheated in school? That is a tricky question. Everyone is always like, you cheated in school, you law-abiding, neurodivergent, you know, taking things literally brain? You cheated? Why? Why would you cheat? What happened? So we had a very well-meaning Norwegian and societal studies teacher who sometimes would give assignments for fun to try to loosen up the class, you know. Loosen up. This was back in junior high, so I would have been like 14, 15 maybe. Smithy says yes. You will indeed hear about the time I cheated in junior high. I was in 9th grade, so yeah, that would make me 14. And he once assigned for fun for the class to make groups and make a video. Could be any video, any subject, anything. And we get to choose our own groups, which back then and still, if I get to choose my own group, I'm going to be with group with myself. So I was alone. And the assumption was that someone would have a camera, someone would have editing software, someone would have the tools to do this thing, because everyone does, right? Everyone has a camera, everyone has a thing. This was back when the Nokia 3210 was a thing, which does not have a camera. I barely had Snake, which was very popular. But that was all the rage. And I did not know what to do. I had no idea. We did not have a video camera at home. He did not provide access to video cameras. He did not provide access to a computer room with editing software. We did not have anything. And I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how to even start on this task that was assigned with all the well-meaning of a teacher who does not understand class and poverty. And all the other classmates managed to do something because they had access to video cameras and they could cut and paste a little bit, but I had no clue. And I was convinced, because of my upbringing, that if I brought this up to the teacher, one of two things could happen. I could either be accused of trying to get out of the assignment and that I was lazy, which, there was no point in bringing it up to the teacher, or even worse, because a lot of the classmates were excited about this assignment, if I brought up that I did not have the tools to complete this assignment, he would pull the assignment for the whole class. And then the whole class would be angry with me, or at least a large part of them would be angry with me, because I had ruined this fun project, and then they would have to do a regular social studies about, political studies or something like that, instead of just getting to make a movie about anything. So in the end, desperate, I downloaded a video from YouTube, which had barely become a thing, and I presented it as my own. And I hadn't done anything other than download it. And I'm pretty sure that the teacher was suspicious of me, because the look in his eyes, he didn't really think that I had edited this thing, but he didn't have enough proof to pin it, to actually corner me about it and confront me about it. So I did get away with it, but yeah, it wasn't the right way to handle it. But back then I was a kid, I didn't know any other way of dealing with it. I felt boxed in, I didn't know what to do. So yeah, I cheated in school exactly once, at least intentionally, that I know of. I don't think if you are unaware of doing things wrongly that it counts as cheating because you didn't know what you were doing. But yeah, I didn't know what to do, so I just downloaded something. Let's see, Steve also has a story. It was the 1970s, our adults were stoned. They thought that fractions were strictly for imperial. I still remember our grade 5 math teacher bragging how we didn't need fractions. Our grade 9th math teacher was horrified. Oh no! That is not very good, yeah. Unfortunately, still see that mindset a lot in both kids and adults, but hearing it from a teacher is something else. Yeah. They just don't understand. They're well-meaning, but they don't understand. Oof. Secret Kristine academic plagiarism lore? I know, right? I'll be in trouble now. You should get credit for creative problem solving. I don't know if it was very creative. It seemed a very lazy solution to me, but yeah, the first time I touched video editing software was the first video on this channel, which I have left up stubbornly, although it is absolutely horrendous, because I want to show people that you can start with really poor with really poor skills and still, they will develop really fast. Yeah. We had a project like that, but it was in 2023 and there was an option to just do a presentation at the front of the class. Yeah, I would have no problem with that. I could do presentations, no problem, especially when I just had to depend on myself and didn't have teammates that I needed to figure out how and what they were going to do. Speaking in front of class was never a problem for me, although most people thought, since I was introverted that I would struggle with it, but that was one thing that I didn't mind because it had a recipe. Just like playing in band at a concert, like you know exactly what you're doing. It's when I don't know what the plan is that I really struggle. Steve also says, we also didn't have classroom walls, but open concept learning. They thought the big kids would help the little kids learn. Have you ever met big kids? They're adults. Yeah, I know, right? It's always a thing, like if you're done with your task in class, you get to help the people who aren't done, which is like both alienating you from the rest of the class and you're not learning anything more, and like it's a punishment because the other kids are often already frustrated that they haven't finished it already. So you get like, yeah, it's just a double whammy of no good things. We are getting towards the end. Presentations when I was a kid was my kryptonite. Yeah, I knew a lot of kids who were struggling, and a lot of kids who were allowed to, at least a couple of kids who were allowed to like present to the teacher by themselves without the class present, which seemed a good solution for a lot of them at least. And they got to show that they did the work. It was not that they hadn't done the work was done. It was just that their nerves were very, very much struggling. We had a classmate as well who began early in the semester and was afraid of joining the other students, so they would sit in a room and do their classwork elsewhere. And they would send people, me included, to sort of help out. I liked helping other kids, but I know I'm weird. But it depends on the other kids, doesn't it? Like if it's the kids that are bullying you in recess, it's not all that fun. But if it's a nice kid who just doesn't understand that, it can be really fun. But you never know like who you're gonna get paired up with. Open concept learning sounds like a special kind of torment. I don't know, like it is interesting. At least when I was working when I was in between job and I was like working as a step-in nurseries, we would have some nurseries would be divided into classes, so you only had similar age groups together, and some you would have completely mixed, and the children would teach each other. And the frustrating things about the very class-oriented ones was that you always had to teach the adults had to teach the kids the same things over and over again, like eating properly with a spoon and all that kind of things, playing nicely with each other. But when you had the age combined things, classes, the younger ones would learn from watching the older ones. But this is specifically in nurseries, not in the school setting. So I think there are benefits and disadvantages of both, at least in small groups, because it's, yeah. Sometimes there are benefits of, I mean, we know that there are benefits of mixing age groups, but you also sometimes need to be the adult and take care of the children and not just let them figure out everything on their own. Steve confirms that it was a kind of torture. I can only study if the background sound is loud. That is very, yeah, that would be very frustrating to have to deal with that kind of thing. The ideal for open concept is small classes. We had between 30 and 40 kids in 4 classrooms combined into one large room. That is way too much. Yeah, I also grew up in areas where you had, in Norway, the maximum amount for a class is 30. So sometimes you would get 31 if they were like too close, but that was like the top amount of students. So that was a full class, and they can be really chaotic. That is absolutely true. They can be so chaotic. And then I hear about people who grew up rurally and had a very tiny class of like 4 to 10 students and had a really close relationship with their teacher because the teacher had the time to deal with them, which sounds interesting. Like there are separate challenges to that, but also kind of interesting. Like fascinated as someone who never actually experienced that. Regarding liking helping other kids, there's probably a difference between I like doing this and I'm doing it of my own volition and I'm expected to do this. Yeah, very much so. Like, helping because you like to help is different from, being sat next to the trouble kids to try to keep them quiet because somehow that is your responsibility as a child of equal age. We are doing the thing that we talked about last stream where we are wrapping around to do one extra stitch per chain, and they are looking very cute. I like. I had great experience with mixed age groups, but yeah, it was with very small classes. One of the things that made it work for me was when I was in there was if I did stuff fast, I could move forward. Ooh, yeah, I liked that. It was always nice if I could actually advance and do more advanced stuff. Then it actually made fun. We are about to have some ads, and then we shall continue rants. And then continues, like, I basically did 2 years worth of stuff in a year, and then my parents struggled to put me back into normal school because I'd already done the material. Yeah, I hear you. I tried to do that once and was so severely chastised by my teacher because now they didn't have any material to give me for the rest of the year that, I should be ashamed of myself. Well, it wasn't the year, but like a couple of months, because I'd been excited and had fun with the material. But then I just got chastised for pulling ahead of class, and now it was more work for them, and now it was my own fault that I didn't have anything to do, so I didn't do that again. Which just, teachers make such a huge difference in whether a child wants to learn or not, because they can really kill. I didn't know how to study for a long time because I didn't need to make an effort in school until I was in university and partly high school. And it was hard to learn to study as an adult when you have never actually known how, because everyone just let you do your own thing. And you were like told off for trying to learn more than you were supposed to that year, which I don't wish on any child. Oh yeah, I got berated for knowing Pythagoras in middle school. Yeah, why? It's such a shame. Like, I can understand that stressed teachers get more work that way, but don't you want the child to be excited about learning? It's such a shame. Mm-hmm. We had student reading assignments. It was supposed to be a student-led. Sadly, the short stories were so boring. Thankfully, I was gifted Nancy Drew books. Nancy Drew books were cute. I had a couple of those too, mostly inherited. Steve, I don't think Lynn is talking about bilingual, since Pythagoras is math. But still, Pythagoras was a fun thing to do. Like, math gets more fun and more magical to me the older I get. It's pretty cool, all the cool stuff you can do with math. How? This seems... No, okay, no. 1, 2, 3. It was not actually wrong. I just did not see the stitches where they were supposed to be. Look, she's getting big. Oops, can we show? She is getting so big. You did just above, so it's just that I can't read. Sorry, Steve. I can't read fast enough to keep up with everything. Aha, yeah. Yeah, I just saw the Pythagoras, but yeah, the solution was dropping me in a bilingual one with no advanced preparation. Yeah, sorry, Steve. I just didn't catch up with the entire conversation. I drove my teachers nuts with being a know-it-all. I think I might have been interpreted as that. Because I, again, didn't really understand what you can and can't do. Like pointing out if the teacher made a mistake on the board, and some teachers really have a problem with that, with having their authority questions, which I don't really think it is questioning their authority, but it was certainly interpreted that way. When we had class assignments, I was forbidden from opening my book for a set amount of time because I read too fast. Yeah, those are so sad. Like, I too, if we were reading aloud, I would get lost when it was my turn because I would get distracted. People were reading so slowly, so I would just keep reading and then not know where I was supposed to read from because I wasn't paying attention to the rest of the class because it was, yeah, going too slowly. And then I would get in trouble for that too. Now the eternal crochet question, can I count? One more, I shall think. I went from a private school that taught things a couple of grades ahead of public to public school of boy was I bored. Oh no, that is not a good thing to start. I was just excited about the material. Yeah, it's such a shame when teachers kill that kind of excitement because it can be so good if you just nurture it. I usually got in trouble for reading books under my desk. Yeah, classic. There's so much more interesting than the stuff we were reading in class, though. A well-written children's book can be salvation to a kid? Yeah, absolutely. They are so important, you know, letting them escape into the world of fantasies. Oh, such a joy. Getting diagnosed with some neurodivergence as an adult really validated my struggles in grade school. I can understand that, yeah. It freed up so much brain capacity to me because I didn't have to worry about why I was different and why I wasn't working like other people around me, because then I didn't have to worry about it so much. So what I'm hearing is that kids get in trouble for ridiculous things and learning should be more celebrated, and hopping into a grade up should be done more. I don't know if that would solve the problems though, if you have a kid that is really thirsty for knowledge. Like, hopping a grade up might stall the problem, but it will probably still resurface if you still don't have ways of doing it. I never thought that I could ask for being pushed a grade up because I kept being bored, but I was like, oh, but I need to get a perfect score on my exams in order to be allowed to be put a grade up, and I never did because I always had like sloppy mistakes, which was all my teachers ever said on teacher-parent conferences was, you know, the grades are good, but she's sloppy and her handwriting is atrocious. And I think the specific wording was that I write like a pig. My primary school writing was not a pretty sight. I did end up skipping a grade the year after that. Great for studying, not great for bullying. I can understand that. That is also a very important social aspect that should not be ignored. This is, after all, children's whole social life in a lot of cases, so not to be underestimated. Pleasure to having class, very smart, but she needs to pay attention for 12 years and no one thought twice. I know, right? The things people should have seen but were not a thing so much back then. I'm glad the crocheters among you told me that I'm supposed to wrap the next pattern around, because I think it looks really good. Like, it really makes the chains pop a lot more and become a lot more... Yeah, it gives them so much structure compared to just a regular chain. It's really nice. Pleasure to having class club? Yeah. Hello. I had been leading a group to protect shy kids against bullying from all older students. They loved having the opportunity to put me back in my place and isolated and closer to them. Oh no. Yeah, that is no good. My Achilles heel was spelling. I'm terrible at spelling. Yeah, I wrote so poorly. I also was not very good at English at all. It wasn't until, again, 9th grade, a lot of things happened in 9th grade for some reason, where we got a family computer and I had an hour each night where I got to browse the internet. And I actually started using my English, both for reading and making. I made a little geosites page, because you can do that back then, and I actually had to use some HTML and actually use the language, and I was singing a lot of songs in English too. That was the first point where I actually started, where my English skills suddenly skyrocketed, because I had been struggling so hard with English up until that point and was so frustrated why we even had to have English in school, because I would just stay in Norway and work here. What was the point? So a lot of people are often surprised that that I did not like English in school, not until I actually managed to use it better. Seven. I was the goody good quiet undiagnosed kid and was put next to the loud attention seeking acting out undiagnosed kid. Yeah, solid combo right there. You can still make geosites. It's been considering making one, but I don't know what I'd have a website about. Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? I didn't know they were still around, but it kind of makes sense that these things still hang out. Four. Seven. There we go. 9th grade was when the teachers realized that I couldn't see the blackboard. Oh, your teachers actually realized that. Mine didn't. My dad did when I was watching television, and he realized that I was squinting at the screen. So they get me glasses, but no, in class I was able to get by watching the arm movement of the teacher, so I could kind of make out the letters that they were writing. I couldn't actually see the blackboard, but I could write down what they were writing as they were writing it, because I could follow the larger arm arm movements. But no, they did not actually notice that I could not actually see what was going on. So, oh well. Glasses are also really expensive, so very difficult to get a hold of when your family does not have a lot of money. But that is a different thing. Also, I got my glasses a few weeks before summer break, and I was like, I'm not going to start wearing glasses now. I'm going to wait until I come back from summer break. And maybe 2 classmates asked if I had been wearing glasses before, because everyone just forgets what you look like, and it was not a problem. Yeah, nobody batted an eye. No one thought twice about it that I was suddenly wearing glasses after summer break, but it was very, very uneventful indeed. Like, bullying aside, I got the opportunity to be in the same classes as my friends who were older, and I still had much younger friends. Forcing kids into 1 year age social groups is weird. It can be very weird, yeah, especially when you know that in Norway we've seen several proofs that, academic development, like children born very late in the year, like in December, do significantly poorer than children born early, because when you're 5 or 6 years old, a year makes a really big difference. And if you're trying to teach them all as if they are all on the same level, the children born late are going to struggle. And they see that again and again. So it's kind of like, yeah, why are we doing this arbitrary thing when maybe it is not the best for children's learning? But then again, the school setup of 30 students in one class and one poor teacher trying to teach them things is also probably not the best setup for actually learning things. But how can we do it in a manner that governments can actually afford, while giving students academic challenges can be a difficult thing. I didn't get glasses until I went to college and I had some money to pay for an eye exam. Yeah, I was lucky. I did have glasses before that because I was also getting migraines, and I was so amazed. It was the most fantastic thing. I remember sitting outside. It was summer because, again, I'd got them right before summer break, and I was sitting on the veranda or the balcony or whatever, and I was just looking at things with my new glasses. I was looking at the trees, amazed that I could see individual leaves. And I was looking in the driveway, equally amazed that at the distance I could still make out individual pieces of gravel. And I just spent a long time just looking at things and being amazed at the kind of things I was able to see from a distance. Because it had just been a blur before, but you don't know that it isn't. That is not how things are supposed to be, because you don't know any different. I only got glasses after my dad's work change. Unfortunately, I lost 2 pairs in a row. Oh no! I was luckily that I didn't lose my glasses, because they were precious, and I don't think we could have afforded the second pair, especially not in short order. Yeah, glasses are pricey. I always had difficulty seeing at least 6th grade, but I took until high school for them to realize how badly I couldn't see. Yeah, they didn't test, although in primary school they did test our hearing. But I don't think they tested our sight. I can't remember though. My mom couldn't believe that I struggled to see the board in school. I managed to keep my grades up, but I was happy to get my eyewear, literally taking words out of my mouth. Yeah, I was just sitting there, just staring at the world and being amazed that I could see it without actually having to go close to it. It's just a special kind of magic. It still amazes me a bit even today. Like, it's just, you can just sit there and look at things from afar. Like, how cool is that? Being able to see leaves gets me every time I get new glasses. Yeah, it's so cool, and you see them rustling in the wind individually, not just as a blob, as a unit. My family didn't understand how much I hated school until I was in my 20s and had the language to explain why 40 teens in a room was not tolerable. Yeah, that does sound like it is indeed a challenging thing and can be. Hi, I like your videos. Any new ones in the making? There are indeed some new ones. Jones, we have some projects in the works. We have been talking about it a bit earlier, but no video this Saturday. I mean, I try not to have a stringent schedule, but I had been proud of having managed to do one every other week since New Year's. But yeah, the streak shall fall this week because I have not managed to do that. But hopefully there shall be something next week coming, and then we just keep trying to work on things after that, as it is. Maybe some science rants are coming. I'm hoping to put in some creative stuff as well, but I'm kind of really enjoying the talking head videos at the moment, like the video essays. They are really vibing with me at the moment. I'll probably, knowing my brain, grow tired of them eventually and then cycle back to making crafty videos, but at the moment, I don't know, it's just hitting a spot to sit there and write for hours and hours. It's just really scratching an itch right now, and I'm really enjoying it, so I'm trying to let myself have fun with that, but, yeah, always something coming, but we shall see how things develop, trying to get to the editing table. Got work, so have a good day, everybody. Have a good day, Sarah. I hope you have a good day at work. 4, 5, 6, 7. Looking forward to the new video, but make sure to take care of yourself first and foremost. Thank you. I try. It's hard when a video is almost done and I'm like ending up working on Saturday because it's so close to done, but I try. We have talked about it before today, like how hard it is to extend the same compassion to yourself that you extend to others, and it is, indeed, really stinking hard. But we try. We shall practice together, and maybe we will get 1% better at the end of the year, Because that's all it is, isn't it? Getting 1% better, a little bit at a time, then hopefully, eventually, we will be a little bit better at it. My pups are bugging me to go for a walk. Can't wait for the next one and for science rants. Oh, I guess it'll have to happen now. Science rants. Kristine rants. The new series that y'all apparently are asking for, and probably no one else. But we shall have fun all the same. Have a good walk. Stripey Crayon says, I'm slightly farsighted and only got glasses 2 years ago. I can see okay with them, but get headaches and eye strain. Oh no. With the glasses on, seeing close details painlessly are so crisp. It's amazing. Yes. I mean, I didn't have that since I can still see close details, but just being able to see the things that you couldn't before is just, it's just magic. It's magic that a piece of glass in front of your eyes just makes the world clearer. It's so cool. Very, very fun indeed. And 7. Then one more. 5. There we are. And I have learned from my mistakes since last time, and actually went and got a little, this is a plastic stitch marker, little plastic safety pins, but yeah. And then loose it immediately so that we can hook it into our working stitch. And even if we pull the thread, stitch still there. Amazing that it took me several weeks of crochet to actually get up and get my stitch markers and do that, because Oh well. What are dissertations and theses but rants with academic sources? Yes. Love the branches in the vase? Oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys, but Spouse went and got me some cherry blossoms. They had been to the grocery store and they were there. It's quite too early for things in our neighborhood, but they got me some and they put them just in the office as a surprise, which I thought was really sweet. And then for some reason, because Spouse is a silly goose, there was also a little, I don't know if you can see this because my face, it wants to focus on my face. But there was a little camel from a Kinder Egg because I've been having a hyper focus on Kinder Eggs lately. So why not add some unhinged to our stream? Why not? Random camel hanging out in the back of our shots just because seems to be a thing. But yeah, they were really sweet. That's so nice, I suppose. Yeah, they do nice things occasionally. And it was fun because I had been meeting a friend, and on my way back I stopped by a shop to pick up some snacks that Spouse had been out of. And then while I was out with my friend, they had also been to the shop and got me these cute stems with that. They got me the stems with, you know, the least amount of blooming actually happening so that I would get to enjoy them blooming in the room, which is really sweet. But we both got surprises for each other at the same time, which I thought was really funny. I have some of those stitch markers. Mine are not green though. I actually found mine. They were lying at the ground, on the ground in the train stop in a chain, and I was like, well, I don't see anyone looking for them. They probably lost or have already gone to their trains, so I guess I have some stitch markers now, and they have been very useful, especially for this kind of thing. I will prune my plum tree soon to force a branch into bloom. Oh, that is... Oh. They are so gorgeous though, they add so much to a room. It's so cute. And Alex have to put the kids to bed, which seems to be the way of things, but I think we too shall be finishing up for the day. This has been a lovely chat. I never quite know where the topics of the day shall take us, but decidedly food for thought and many things to think about. So I hope to have some interesting things coming. I am, as always, very slow in doing things and trying to be nice to myself, but yeah. Plum blossoms are so beautiful too. They are. I think all the fruit trees are like, when they bloom, they are just, it just overshadows everything else. And often when the fruit trees are blooming, there aren't a lot of other things blooming at the same time, so they just take over. I remember where I grew up, there were these ornamental cherry trees that would bloom before they had leaves. So they were just this tree of this, you know, ball of pink, pale pink. And it was such a gorgeous thing. It was just mind-blowing, that thing. It's so pretty in early spring. I don't know where they got them from, where the county got them from, but oh, they were so pretty. Thank you, wishing everyone a good week. Yes, indeed, good night, and good night, everyone. And yes, I shall call it here, and we are almost exactly on the 2-hour dot, which is well done. We didn't go half an hour over as we sometimes do, but I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, a lovely rest of February. We are almost in March. And that you also not just tell me to take care of myself, but also take care of yourself, and that we all together practice that very difficult thing of extending some of the compassion we share with others to ourselves as well. I know, the homework this week is really tough. It's really hard, but we shall do one practice. One practice of being kind to ourselves, maybe. But yes, always nice to hang out with you all, and hopefully, as always, health notwithstanding, I shall see you all in a week. Bye!